Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. P is for Plog. So this is my weekly podcast talking about my life as a plogger. A plogger is someone who picks up trash while running. I've been doing it for 13 years, but since October, I've gone professional. I'm trying to make a living from this. Don't know if it's going to work. I'm struggling a little bit in getting new sponsors. That'll be another episode. But for today, the episode is called P is for Pensioner. Let's get cracking.
Plog it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plog it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plog it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plog it, plug 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 it.
So let me just kick off. I'm not becoming a pensioner or anything like that, but I just needed a P word that's going to be talking about age, because that's going to be the main subject for today. So the first of the dodgy P words has come out in this podcast series. For those that have not listened to my podcast before, then I suggest you listen to perhaps the first 3 episodes. They talk about who I am, what I do, and why I'm doing this. But for the rest of you, let's get straight in with it, and let's talk about the week that I've just had. Well, I'm actually in the middle of a really tough week. Oh, not a tough week, a really exciting week, I should say, because it's just a jam-packed week. I'm sort of doing all these evening events. I was sort of talking to my wife and I said, yeah, I've got this. This is the one night I'm actually at home. All the rest of the time I'm out. And I don't know about what you're like as a runner, but for me, I'm an early morning runner. I am not a person that does well in the evening. If I don't get my run in first thing in the morning, then the chances are the chance that I will actually run goes down to perhaps about 50%, because I just don't have that motivation to get out the door usually. And that actually happened once this week. I did a 2-kilometer run just to the chemist to pick up some contact lenses for my wife, and that was actually the only run I did. I thought, right, I'll got a little bit of a run in, I'll do a proper run later on this afternoon, and it just never happened. And I am very much a morning runner. I don't know about you. So it's just a crazy period. So I've got a lot of social runs in the evening. So on Wednesday I did a social run with Patagonia. That was a lot of fun, and I tested out my banana suit with Christmas lights. That was a bit of a failure. I just got some of these cheap lights from the Action here, and that was such a bad mistake. They just broke straight away. I've got a little bit better set of lights now. So for tonight, I've got another run that's going to be in Amsterdam, and I'm really looking forward to that. So that should be a lot of fun. I've got a really good event on Saturday, but I'm going to leave that for next week's episode. So it's a jam-packed week for me, and in fact, I'm in the middle of today. So this morning I went for my first run at 7, or actually before 7, to get to the run that was starting at 7. Did a nice bit of a run there. And then this evening I've got another run at 7. So I've got a bit of a jam-packed day today, which means that I'm going to get straight into the main subject, I think, for today's podcast, which is P is for pensioner. Oh, I was just using the thesaurus. I know that the P4 is going to limit me, but I've had my first real struggle today on today's episode. All I wanted to know was talk about experience, talk about the fact that when you get older, one of the best things you can do is one of the best things that you've got all of these years of experience, all of these years of adventures. And the only P word I could think of was either prehistoric. I didn't really want to do P's for prehistoric and then talk about myself, so I came up with pensioner. So forgive me for a very poor segue into age. So what do I want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about a dilemma that I actually had at the Patagonia. I could have done P's for Patagonia. So the Patagonia run this a couple of days ago on Wednesday. So a group of us were in Amsterdam. Patagonia, the Amsterdam store, does a social run every couple of weeks, and this was the Christmas edition, and so I sort of came along for that one just to say hi to the people I know in the Patagonia crew. Really nice people, great run. full of really good Patagonia vibes. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. But then I heard people having all these different conversations, and I actually went quiet. The reason why I went quiet is because I thought, I just felt a bit, okay, this is going too far. So I rocked up in a banana suit with Christmas lights all over it. And when you do that, you're already sort of making a statement of, look at me. I mean, the intent is for people to look at me, but not to look at me because I'm cool, but look at me because of what I'm doing is cool. What I'm trying to achieve is cool. Doesn't make me cool. I mean, you're looking at the video, it says it all. I went to this event, and straight away some people were making these comments, and I was like thinking, oh, I can add to that conversation. But then I was just so worried it would come across as very egotistical and self-centered if I say something. But I did have something valuable to provide or to say from my own life experience. But when you get older, it was just very hard for me to sort of figure out a way of doing that without coming across as bragging or anything along those lines. And my wife, I was talking to my wife about it, and she said, look, heck, you've done these things. You've got something to add. You should say them. I just need to try and find a way of coming across perhaps a little bit more, to make it not such a big thing. But I wanted to sort of go through them and sort of give you those ones that just came out on Wednesday, and then perhaps you'll sort of understand why. But going back to the P's for pension and the age, the thing is, it's not necessarily your ego talking. When you get older, by default, you've had a lot of experiences. That's one of the real benefits about getting old, is because you've done a lot. And it doesn't have to be a lot every time, every day. At the moment, it feels like people have got to do something every other week to do something amazing and crazy. Maybe, and that's probably true of me. But really, if you do, let's say 2 or 3 things a year that are very special, when you get to my age, you've got well over 100 things that you're going to talk about. And yeah, you just got 100 life experiences there. I mean, how many can you remember? Now we've got digital cameras. It used to be with when you did cameras, when you had a camera, you would take a photo. You'd be really careful about which photo you took because it's costing you money to print it out. So you end up with, let's say, 30 photos, and of those 30 photos, you've got sort of 5 really good ones that you can sort of use, and you've got 5. Now we're taking 300 a day or something ridiculous if we want to sort of capture something. We just can't hold all of that information. Let me go through these things, these conversations that were happening. And so this is just on Wednesday. This was just from that one social run. And I'll kick off just to give a bit of a background. I'm not sure if I've talked about it before, but the reason why we moved to Haarlem, or one of the reasons why Haarlem was a suitable destination for us to move to start our family, was it was a great distance for me to cycle to work. I was working in Amsterdam. Amsterdam was 22 kilometers away from door to door. So it was a perfect distance for me to cycle every day to work. And that was the idea. So I did that. I'd done it before in the UK as well. I had cycled from where I was living then in Croydon into sort of the town, into the city of London, and same sort of distance, and I was doing it. And this was in the late 90s. So I'm not the first person ever to do this, but I was one of the few that was doing it. It was the time where everyone was wearing masks because they didn't want all the smog and things. Not many people were there. I remember being at a traffic light and there was maybe sort of 2 or 3 other cyclists alongside me. Sort of 5 years later, I did the same route, and then suddenly there's like 100 cyclists around me. It just really sort of took off, but this was just before it took off. So, I mean, cycling and commuting was always something I did. So one of the conversations that happened that I didn't answer was they were talking about a member of staff who also lives here in Haarlem, and they were saying, yeah, he cycles into work every day. It was sort of crazy that he sort of does that, or he sort of and he ran in the other day as well from Haarlem, the other 22 kilometers. And I wanted to say, yeah, I kind of cycled in every day for 10 years, and then one day in the week I'd actually run into work as well. So I'd get a half marathon just on the way into work every week. That was just something that I did. I didn't, there was no social media for me to announce or whatever, but yeah, I kind of did it already. So, but I didn't say, oh yeah, I did that. Oh, I did that sort of 20 years ago. But it felt like if I said it would come across as an ego, but it's just a life experience that I wanted to share, and I should be able to do that. Perhaps I need to do it outside of a banana suit. Maybe that's it. So that was sort of one of the things. And in fact, yeah, I did crazy things then as well. So there was one time when I was selling my golf clubs to a colleague, and I thought, right, I'll run in with the golf club. So I had these golf clubs on a trolley, and I just ran the 22 kilometers into work in the morning with the trolley and the golf clubs in them. It was just something I kind of did. So yeah, there was something that was the first thing that was just the most obvious one. Was that there was another one they were talking about. He was doing a lot of runs during that day, so he was like, it was great, and it's fantastic. He'd sort of done 2 runs, and he'd so he'd done a run to get to a run, and then done another run on the way back, and he just ran to get to the social run today on Wednesday, and then he did the run, then he's running back, and he was doing sort of around well over probably close to 30 kilometers. That is amazing. And so again, I didn't say anything on that one because I didn't want to detract from what he was doing, because I thought it was just so incredible what he was doing. But like today, I've already done, I think, 15 kilometers this morning, and then I've got the same thing again tonight, and then tomorrow I've got 5 runs, and I'll be doing over a marathon. So it's really, it just comes from age and from sort of the passion I've had. When people talk about running, they talk about how long you've been running for, and I kind of go, 44 years, something like that. They go, but I've been running for like 5 years. No, I've been running for 44 years. I started when I was 13. I remember that first run when I was 13. So life, it just gives you all of these experiences, and that's sort of the benefit that I can sort of bring here is when people talk about how long you've been doing it for me, it normally is something like, I've been doing it for decades. It's not because I'm any better than them, it's just I'm older than them, so I've got all of these extra experiences. Another one that was really, it's not quite the same, but again, I could have brought my own story in there, which was, and it was actually the same guy that was doing the running, I think, and he came up with this fantastic story about how he switches from, he cycles during the summer and he runs during the winter. And I think that's such a fantastic way to combine those two sports and do it. And it reminded me of when I was doing my bike commuting, what I would do was the same thing. What I would have is I had a race bike and I'd have a mountain bike, and I would switch. I would switch them when the clocks changed, then I would switch from one to the other. So in the wintertime, I would have the mountain bike just because it had bigger tires and it felt a lot safer to me. And then in the summer, I would have the race bike. It was quicker, it was easier to get in, etc. So I kind of did the same thing, but again, I didn't say anything. Also, when people talk about Strava, because GPS came out in something like 2005, I was definitely an early adopter for GPS in terms of sports watches. So I didn't have the very first Forerunner, but I had the Forerunner 301. So I think that was 2005, 2006 when I got it. So that was the first time that I did running with GPS, but I'd been running for decades before that, but without GPS. But the good thing with the GPS is I have now all of these GPS tracks, and I uploaded them onto Strava. So if you look on Strava, you can see my first run is 2005, 2006, something along those lines. It's just age. It's not that I'm any better than anyone else. It's just age, and with that comes a lot of experiences. I just need to find out a way of telling people these experiences without it coming across as being any better than them, because I'm definitely not, or any more experienced. Maybe I am more experienced just because I've been doing it for longer, but it's very hard to sort of find that right balance. I don't know, for those old people listening, I don't know if you have the same sort of thing. I'm definitely not going to say in the good old days. I avoided that so far on this podcast. I've written down a few things here, and this wasn't about Wednesday or anything along those lines, but just it gives you an insight into how stupid I've been all my life. When I was, I think, 17, sort of along those lines, I was like wondering what I should do as a career, and I decided to get to sort of enroll into the army. If I did through a university degree, they would sponsor me to do the university, and then I could get a sort of captaincy in the army. I thought, well, that'd be a really cool way of them paying my university stuff and then sort of getting a job straight away. And I thought, that's fantastic. Suddenly I can be in the army, I can do sport all the time. It was like the perfect job for me. Then a friend of mine said, yeah, you realize you have to shoot people, or you might have to shoot people. And I went, oh, didn't think about that. So I decided against it. So that was my brief adventure. But the cool thing about, the reason I'm talking about that is because of one thing that a teacher of mine said. Yeah, we didn't have internet those days, so you got all the information from friends and teachers and things. And the teacher said, yeah, you have to sort of run. Yeah, well, if you go in the army, you need to run 10 miles or whatever with 56 pounds on your back. So I don't know how much is 56 pounds, or 20 kilos, something along those lines. So you have to do that. So I thought, right, let's see if I can do it. Even in those days, I'd sort of run to school occasionally, and that was around 6, 7, 8 kilometers, something along those lines. So I thought, all right, what I'll do is I'll run to school, and I've got a rucksack. I'm going to fill it up to 20 kilos, and I'll run to school, just make sure I can sort of do it. Okay, what can I fill it up with? I filled it up with bricks. I got the bricks in. Had it from the kitchen, sort of the Waye scales that we had at home. I did it, so it was exactly 56 pounds. So that was all good. Put it on my back, and then I started running, and I ran into school with it. As is so often the case with me, and I mentioned that I think last week as well, I kind of had these great ideas, but when I actually start executing them, I realize the flaw in my plan. The flaw in this plan was I didn't think about what bricks jumping up and down on my back, or sort of rubbing up and down on my back, would do. I hadn't really padded them or anything. I just literally put bricks in a rucksack and then went. So the bricks, just over the course of the 8 kilometers or whatever it was, they slowly started ripping through the backpack. They were quite thin backpack, sort of rucksacks in those days. So they ripped through the material of the rucksack and then started ripping into my back as well. So my back was covered in all these wounds from just the bricks rubbing up and down on it for those couple of hours I took in to get into school. But again, that's not necessarily. People today do crazier things. When I see some of the things that people are doing on the internet, you're just kind of, wow, that is just so crazy. What I did there with the school thing, maybe it's less than probably what they did. It's just the fact that I did it 40 years ago. It's not because I was an innovator. It's just because of who I did, and there was didn't know anything better. So I'm definitely not the first to do stupid things like that. Same with plogging. I've been doing it for over 13 years. I've been doing it since before plogging was a word. Doesn't mean I'm the first plogger. I'm definitely not. What it does mean is I've been doing it for over 13 years. That's comes with age. It doesn't come with anything else. If you stick with something long enough, then you get to a point where you can say you've been doing it for over a decade. And that, for me, is one of the real highlights as in the path I'm on at the moment. And that is one of my unique selling points, I think. What makes me stand out from the crowd? I'm definitely not the youngest, best looking with chiseled abs or anything along those lines. I don't have that. What do I have going for me? I have age, and I have an experience, and I really should be more willing, or I think I need to be more open to telling those stories, knowing that it might come across to some as being an ego trip, whereas hopefully to some people it'll come across as saying, yeah, he's old, he's just experienced a lot. That's something that I can look forward to when I get old. Well, I think I've talked about everything, but when you get the other thing with age and experiences, you kind of forget things. Did I talk about everything yet? I don't know. I'll have to play it back and see. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Of course, got the tips, the plogging tip to come, so let's get on with that.
Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it.
So what is the tip for this week? Well, let's keep it in the same arena as age and experience and time. One of the things I love to say in terms of how you can make an impact and the importance of one piece of trash is when you have one person picking up 1,000 pieces of trash, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah. But I would rather have 1,000 people picking up one piece of trash. That has a bigger impact. So my tip is along the lines of that and age. I'd rather that you picked up one piece of trash for 1,000 days. If you just do that, you've got a plogging streak. You've got something that is so easy, just picking up a piece of trash every day. If you start now, then in a couple of years, it won't have cost you any time. All it does is take a few seconds of your day. And then you can say, yeah, every day I've picked up trash for the last 10 years. How cool a story is that? I think that's pretty cool. My name is Paul. This is my way of life. Don't necessarily want you to do as extreme as me. And like I said there, just pick up one piece. Just do it every day. Hopefully this has inspired you to change your way of life into something that maybe makes a bigger impact today. Thank you very much for listening. Speak to you next week. Bye.